Welcome back. Tonight is not officially a State of the Union address because President Trump wasn't in office last year, but the speech is a golden opportunity relished by new presidents. So how does this President Trump, stack up in recent history? Let's take a look. He has by far a lower approval rating of the 6 most recent presidents. Ronald Reagan at 55%, George H.W. Bush 51%, Bill Clinton 51%, George W. Bush 62%, President Obama at 59% when he relished this opportunity in his first term, Donald Trump at 44%. So at a disadvantage when it comes to that. Here's one Trump advantage, though, going into tonight. Remember when President Obama started? Unemployment was 8.3%, heading up to 10%, a little higher. Donald Trump does start with a good economy. That's a good thing for a president. Another thing to think of, when the president talks tonight, his agenda, a lot of Democrats on the coast, this is the House map, don't like it. But when he talks about immigration, security, plays well in red America. That's very important to this president. Cater to the people who got him here. As we prepare for tonight's speech, let's take a little trip down memory lane.
By the year 2000, almost 20% of our income will be in health care. Our families will never be secure, our businesses will never be strong, and our government will never again be fully solvent until we tackle the health care crisis. We must do it this year.
I hope you'll join me in standing firmly on the side of the people. You see, the growing surplus exists because taxes are too high and government is charging more than it needs. The people of America have been overcharged, and on their behalf, I'm here asking for a refund.
While our economy may be weakened and our confidence shaken, though we are living through difficult and uncertain times, tonight I want every American to know this: we will rebuild, we will recover, and the United States of America will emerge stronger than before.
It's interesting to go back. Some issues never leave us. Bill Clinton talking about health care as an urgent challenge, both from a budget perspective and from a societal perspective. But B, as you watch it, this is new presidents view this as an opportunity to sort of set the stage, set the terms of the debate. Yes, the inauguration speech gets a lot of play, but this is a big opportunity to talk more specifically. And so I guess back to the question, this president tonight, what's the challenge, the biggest challenge?
Well, first, one thing that's been fascinating is Republicans on Capitol Hill are sort of desperate for specifics from this president because they really don't know where he stands. You even have this situation where he says one thing, his cabinet officials or his vice president say something slightly different. And I think the challenge or what they want from him are specifics. But what we're hearing from his aides is it's not going to be a bunch of specifics. It's not going to be Bill Clinton chock full of details and the donut hole and the bear claw, right? I mean, it's going to be sort of Trump top-line messaging, which is good for his base and it allows him not to get bogged down, but that's not what lawmakers want to hear.
You can't do that to me. You said donut hole and bear claw. Lockbox popped into my head.
I do think that he needs to provide guidance and a little bit of focus to Republicans and give them something to sell. The master salesman needs to make a pitch, and he needs to give his people something to talk about, a cohesive message, because right now it's been sort of scattershot, depending on what he says that day or, you know, whatever's in the news that day. He just really hasn't given them something to sell.
And he's going to say that he wants to make America safer. And he wants to say that we have a border crisis. Some people disagree with that, but he wants to say we have a security crisis, both from our southern border and from terrorists abroad. And he wants to say he wants to rev up the economy and get going. As you jump into the conversation, I just want to put up on the screen, his first-year agenda is pretty ambitious. And he signed a lot of actions and had a lot of events about this, but he can't get this done without help from Congress. Will they build a wall along the U.S.-Mexico border? Take 2 of the travel ban, we're told will come out tomorrow. How does that one play out? Repealing and replacing Obamacare, we talked about. He wants to roll back regulations. He wants tax reform. That requires Congress. Infrastructure, we are told, will not be in the first Trump budget. Some people in the White House are saying the money for that's interesting. Increasing military spending, an America First economy, rewriting trade relationships around the world. It's complicated stuff, and yet the Republicans want some help, but this president also wants to, this is a chance to convince people 40 days in, when he knows a lot of the country's not so sure about him, that he's making progress.
Let me talk about the part of the country that's not so sure about him, because that archival tape, John, reminds us that this is a ritual, that certain things don't change. Each president is standing in front of the American flag, standing in front of the vice president, awake or asleep, standing in front of the Speaker of the House, walks in after being announced by the Sergeant at Arms, shakes hands with many people. There are many parts of this that are a ritual that happen every single time. And this is a very unique president who has not said a lot about what he thinks about democracy, what he thinks about the current system, except that there are parts of it that he does want to disrupt and he does want to blow up. My colleague Ron Elving was pointing out recently, that this is a moment when a president who may have come from outside the system, may get absorbed by the system, is accepted as part of the system. And so does he embrace that or push against it? That's the two choices that he faces in this particular ritual.
And I think meeting the moment here, I mean, he still has a lot of supporters out there, without a doubt. And a lot of people want him to do well. A lot of people want disruption here. You know, the market is doing, you know, it's on fire. So there is still, he enters this evening, you know, with a ton of advantages. I think the question is, can he meet the moment of this moment? Is he the man for this moment? I think that we see all people in the Oval Office sort of grow into this power. I mean, looking back at those pictures, we see how young they look. I mean, this is a 70-year-old president here who's going to grow in office. But I think tonight is a chance for him to sort of put some order to his presidency and reframe the opening moments here, if he wants to. Or he can simply use it as a chance to fire up his base. We've been told again and again it's going to be optimistic, uplifting. That's in the eye of the beholder, I think, as you said a couple days ago. And I wouldn't look it to be too sunny-sided.
But I think the if he wants it part is very important, because a lot of people have been saying, when is he going to reach out to the Clinton supporters? When is he going to reach out to the skeptics in the country? When is he going to reach out to Democrats here in town? And to your point, which is an excellent and a very important point, the Democrats haven't done a lot of outreach either. And so if you're Donald Trump and you know they're not going to come your way, do you try to play what we've seen so far? Watch the CPAC speech last week. Watch his executive action so far. This has been about fidelity to the people who sent him here, and everybody else can wait.
Absolutely. I will say this is going to be, at least they hope, a teleprompter speech. And during the campaign covering him, I was struck by when he reads off a teleprompter and when he sticks to script, which, to be clear, is not that often. He can really go out and sell that message. In the moments he chose to be unifying or read those words, he really sold it credibly, like sort of the salesman and showman that he is. So again, to Jeff's point, if he wants to do that, I have no doubt that that's something he could absolutely convey this evening. It's just a question of, is he doing that, or is he reflecting sort of the dark Bannon, Stephen Miller, populist worldview?
There's also, we focus in Washington, we work here, so we always stress the importance of the presidency and Congress. Some of these things are out of a president's control. Now, that doesn't mean, you mentioned the booming stock market. One of the reasons the market is booming is because businesses think they're going to get tax reform, and they think they're going to get regulatory rollback. That's a direct result of the election. But listen to the president here in this Fox and Friends interview, because I think the ultimate part, we're grading him at 40 days. When we come back at 1 year, 2 years, and 3 years, and we're gearing up for 2020, this is the biggest question.
Well, I think the money's going to come from a revved up economy. I mean, you look at the kind of numbers we're doing, we were probably GDP of a little more than 1%. And if I can get that up to 3 or maybe more, we have a whole different ballgame. It's a whole different ballgame. And that's what we're looking to do.
I mean, he's right. Go back to the Clinton years. It's a whole different ballgame in any number of ways. Number one, people out there are happy. Right. If their economy's revving, that means you probably have a job and your wages are going up. But in this town, that means more tax money's coming in. Even if they cut taxes, there's more coming in a booming economy, and that makes every decision easier. John McCain can get more for defense, and they don't cut the State Department as much, and you can still cut taxes. I mean, we're talking about all this maneuvering in Washington, but the central question for this presidency is, does that growth number come up?
Without question. And I think also many House Republicans are looking for him to embrace tax reform. What specifically is that going to be? I'm told by 3 specific Republicans on the Hill on each side that they're expecting an earthquake tonight, in their words, in terms of tax reform, in terms of some big things. So will that be support for the border adjustment tax, which he's been on all sides of that issue, or will it not? That would make Speaker Ryan leap out of his chair and hug him, perhaps, but it might make Mitch McConnell sort of, upset. So I think that look what he says tonight about tax reform, because the market certainly will be.
It's yet another family feud, the disagreements between the House leadership and some of their own Tea Party people, and then on the Senate side about the border adjustment tax, and see if the president can resolve some of these differences. And